Usually when we think about our morning routines, there's this expectation of flow,
Hmm.
like breathing.
Right. It just feels completely automatic.
Completely automatic. The alarm goes off, you stumble out of bed, you pour the coffee, you rush out the door. It happens.
Yeah, you don't really stop to think about
No,
it.
you don't. We don't really stop to think about the invisible scaffolding holding all of those actions
No,
together.
absolutely.
But if you take a step back and look at the actual words we use in our own heads to build that routine, suddenly that smooth, thoughtless flow it's actually governed by an incredibly rigid, almost mathematical set of linguistic rules.
It's so true because you aren't just pouring coffee,
Sure.
right? Your brain is actually saying, I have to make coffee,
Yes, exactly. I have to leave by 8.
right? You are constantly framing your entire morning and really your entire day around structures of absolute necessity.
And that is exactly what we are exploring today. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are taking a look at a specific set of grammar notes focused entirely on the mechanics of modern obligations in the English language. Specifically, the precise, the mechanical usage of the phrases has to and have to.
Yeah, the heavy lifters.
You probably use these phrases 100 times a day, at school, in the office, talking to your friends, but today we are going to look under the hood.
I love that, looking at the machinery.
We want to extract the exact formulas that govern how these phrases operate, why they shift forms, and how they drive human action. So I want to unpack this logically.
Okay, let's do it.
What are we actually doing mechanically when we deploy these two little words?
Well, when you look at the core definitions in our sources, these two phrases, has to and have to, are the ultimate linguistic tools for expressing three very specific things.
Right.
They express necessity, obligation, and something important that absolutely must be done. They are, essentially, the engines of action.
They aren't suggestions.
No, not at all. They aren't polite requests. When you hear these phrases, a boundary is being drawn, a strict requirement is being set.
It's the difference between saying, it might be nice to study, and what our source material gives as our first concrete example, I have to study.
Exactly. Or she has to work.
Right. There's a distinct weight to it. It shuts down alternative options.
It's binary.
Yeah.
You either do it or you fail the obligation. And once we understand why we use these phrases, to express that absolute non-negotiable necessity, we really need to understand how the language actually builds them.
Because English is, it's peculiar.
Oh, highly peculiar. It doesn't just have one engine for this. It splits the job.
Right.
The basic architectural formula for these sentences is the subject, plus either have to or has to, plus the verb in its first form, so the base verb. That is the foundational equation.
Okay. I love looking at grammar like an equation, but the immediate question that jumps out at me from the notes is, why the split?
Right. Why two versions?
Yeah, why do we need two different gears, have to and has to do the exact same job?
It all comes down to the subject, the who that is doing the action. The grammar rules dictate a very strict divide based on pronouns.
Okay, lay it out for me.
Let's look at the first category. This group includes the pronouns I, you, we, and they. Whenever one of these subjects is the engine of the sentence, they must be paired with have to.
And our sources give us some great everyday examples of this in action.
Yeah, they do.
Like, I have to wake up early, we have to learn English, they have to complete the project.
Exactly.
And notice how the action verb at the very end, wake, learn, complete, it just stays in its normal, clean first form.
Right, the base verb doesn't have to do any heavy lifting. The mechanical weight of the sentence, the actual expression of the obligation itself, is being carried entirely by that middle section, the have to.
I like to think of this like a uniform policy at a job.
Oh, I like that analogy. How does that work?
Right, so think of the subject pronouns as having a specific uniform policy. The employees, basically. Some pronouns are required to wear the standard have to uniform.
Okay, the baseline workers.
Right, the standard crew. But I'm going to push back on the logic of this grouping for a second, because this is where I think English gets incredibly frustrating for anyone trying to analyze it.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Like, we and they are plural. That makes total sense to group them together in one uniform. But I and you can be singular. I am one person. Why am I lumped in with the plural crowd?
That is a brilliant question, and it highlights one of the core quirks of English syntax.
It's so
It
weird.
really is. In English, the outlier isn't plurality. The true outlier is the third person singular.
The third person singular.
Right. When you are talking about yourself, I, or directly to someone else, you, the language treats that as the baseline default. The structure remains flat, have to. But the moment you start talking about a single entity outside of that immediate conversation, a he, a she, or an it, the entire grammatical machinery shifts.
Ah, so it's not about how many people there are, it's about the perspective. It's the act of pointing at someone else.
Precisely. And that brings us to the second group, the third person singular.
The VIP group in our uniform analogy.
Yes, the VIPs. He, she, its, or singular names like Sarah or John. When these subjects are in play, the formula forcefully shifts. You can no longer use the default uniform. You absolutely must use has to.
And the sources give us the exact blueprints for this shift. He has to go now. Sarah has to study hard. She has to cook dinner.
Exactly.
It's a very clear divide, a great pronoun split.
It really is. And the source material provides a very simple memory trick, a structural shortcut to help you lock this in.
Oh, tricks are always good. What is it?
If you are ever trying to build a sentence and find yourself in doubt, just remember, he, she, it equals has to o. Meanwhile, I, you, we, they equals has to.
Just isolating that third person singular is the key.
Yes. If you internalize that the third person singular always demands the es sound at the end of the obligation, you instantly eliminate a huge percentage of the errors people make when speaking.
That makes a lot of sense.
For instance, the notes specifically flag a very common mistake beginners make, saying, he have to go.
Oh, you hear that constantly. He have to go.
Right.
It happens because the speaker is defaulting to the baseline. They're trying to use the flat neutral gear for everything.
Exactly. The brain is just trying to be efficient. But armed with our memory trick, we know that he is the outlier. It demands the specialized gear.
The VIP uniform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the only mechanically correct output is he has to go.
That makes total sense when we're talking about the things we absolutely must do, the positive obligations.
Right.
But life isn't just a never-ending list of requirements, thankfully. Sometimes the most crucial thing we need to communicate is a lack of obligation, the freedom from having to do something.
Which is a great feeling.
It is. And this is where I feel like the rules from our sources take a really surprising, almost contradictory structural turn. We need to look at negative sentences.
This is where the engineering of the language gets genuinely fascinating.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I want to challenge the mechanics here because they feel like a trap.
A trap. How so?
If I'm someone analyzing this language and I've just perfectly internalized the rule you just gave me, that Sarah, she, he, they all take has to, then my most logical instinct is to just keep that rule and insert a negative modifier.
Right. You just want to add the word not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If Sarah has to study hard and I want to communicate that she doesn't have an obligation today, my brain immediately wants to construct she does not has to.
Yeah, that sounds logical.
It follows the exact rule we just established, but the source notes explicitly flag this as a massive fundamental error. Why does the rule suddenly shatter? It feels like the rug is being pulled out from under the structure we just built.
It feels that way because you are assuming the word not is just a passive sticker you can slap onto the existing sentence.
Right, just glue it in there.
But that's not what's happening. What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanics of how English handles negation. You aren't just adding a modifier, you are actually introducing a completely new mechanical gear into the engine of the sentence.
Okay.
And that gear is the word does or do.
Walk me through the mechanics of this gear shift, because
Yeah.
she does not has to sounds so perfectly logical to a literal mind.
Let's look closely at the negative formula provided in our sources.
Okay, I have it right here.
It's subject plus do or does plus not plus have to plus the verb.
Wait, look at what happened to the phrase has to.
Right. What happened to it?
It completely vanished.
Yes, it reverted back to the baseline default, have to.
Okay, why? What is the mechanical reason for that?
In the English language, the auxiliary word does functions like a highly powerful, greedy magnet.
A greedy magnet. I like that.
Think about it. When you introduce does into a sentence with a third-person singular subject like she, that does absorbs all the grammatical weight of the sentence.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Remember how we said the third person singular demands an es sound?
Yes, the VIPs need the es.
Well, does has an s, so it acts like a magnet, and it literally steals the grammatic coordinates right out of the primary verb phrase.
Oh, wow.
Because the word does is already doing the heavy lifting of showing the listener that we are talking about a she or a he, the verb phrase that follows gets to relax.
Its job is done.
Exactly. Its job is done.
So it drops its specialized form and reverts completely back to its base neutral form. You have to.
That is incredible. So does takes on the burden, meaning the rest of the sentence doesn't have to carry it. The magnet pulls the grammatical weight all the way to the front.
Precisely. That is the source's important rule, and it is absolutely vital to understand. The addition of does structurally alters the rest of the sentence.
Therefore, the construction is always, she does not have to. And it is never, she does not has to.
Because you can't have two magnets.
Right. You cannot have two Z sounds competing. You cannot say does and has. The magnet already stole the weight.
That completely reframes how I look at these sentences. She does not has to. Just sounds clumsy once you understand the magnet concept. It's like putting two engines in a car when you only need one.
It really is.
Let's look at the specific examples the sources provide to really cement this mechanic. For the baseline group, the I, you, we, they, we just use the neutral gear do. So I do not have to go, they do not have to wait.
Because the magnet isn't stealing an S, right? There never was an S to steal.
Exactly. It remains flat.
But for the third-person singular outlier group, we introduce the magnet does, and we let it steal the weight. She does not have to cook today.
Not has to.
Right. She does not have to cook today.
It is a profound structural shift, and once you grasp that greedy, magnetic nature of the words do and does, a lot of the seemingly random chaos of English grammar starts to look like a highly organized machine.
It really does. It all fits together.
Well, building on that machine logic, here's what I find genuinely fascinating.
What's that?
Once you spot that hidden pattern, with do and does taking over the heavy lifting in negative sentences, we can apply that exact same mechanical logic to our final structural hurdle today.
Which is asking questions.
Exactly. Flipping the script entirely to ask about other people's obligations.
And you'll find the transition is practically seamless.
Okay, let's see it.
The question formula simply takes that greedy do or does gear and physically moves it to the very front of the sentence. The formula from our notes is do or does plus the subject plus have to plus the verb.
So let me guess the logic here based on the magnet.
Go for it.
If I'm asking a question about he or she, I put the magnet does at the very front of the sentence.
Yep.
And because that magnet is present, it is still stealing the grammatical weight, which means, once again, has to is nowhere to be found.
You got it perfectly.
Yeah.
The question structure forces the use of the default have to, even for the third-person singular group.
The examples from the text demonstrate this flawlessly. If we are asking the baseline group, we just use do. Do you have to work tomorrow? Do they have to pay now?
And for the third-person group, we deploy the magnet at the very front. Does he have to study today?
Not does he has to study today.
Never. The does already carries the S. The verb relaxes into have to. Does he have to study today?
It is deeply satisfying when the math of the language actually checks out across the board like that.
It is, isn't it?
It proves that this isn't just a random collection of phrases people memorized over centuries. It's a functioning, interlocking system of gears.
It's a beautifully consistent piece of linguistic engineering once you know what to look for.
So let's bring this down to earth. We've talked deeply about the architecture, the pronoun split, the greedy magnets of do and does, and the structural inversions.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But theoretical mechanics are only valuable when they're actually applied to real life. We need to transition from these abstract rules directly into your daily routine.
And our source material provides a highly relatable section of real-life examples that highlight just how ubiquitous these phrases are.
They really are everywhere.
They aren't just for textbooks. We use them for modern technology, like I have to charge my phone. We use them to navigate corporate life. She has to attend the meeting.
Right.
We use them for daily scheduling. We have to leave early. And, of course, in education, he has to finish homework.
You literally cannot navigate a single 24-hour period without expressing one of these obligations, which means it is time to test the mechanics.
Okay, I'm ready.
The source notes actually include a practice section, so let's do a lightning round. I want to test how well I've internalized this magnet logic, and if you're listening, I want you to try to beat me to the punch.
Love it.
Guess the missing gear before I do.
All right, let's put the logic to the test. I will give you the subject and the action from the practice scenarios, and you assemble the mechanics.
Let's do it.
Scenario 1. The subject is she, and the action is work hard. What is the positive obligation?
Okay, let me think. Running the logic. The subject is she. That is third person singular.
Correct.
That is the outlier group, the VIPs. There is no negative, there is no question, so there is no magnet to steal the weight.
So what does that mean?
Which means the obligation itself must carry the S. So she has to work hard.
Perfect. Exactly right. Let's try the next one. The subject is they, and the action is finish the task.
They, plural. This belongs to the baseline default group. It doesn't require the specialized as gear, so it remains flat. They have to finish the task.
Spot on. Let's do one more positive from the practice section before I throw a curveball at you.
Bring it on.
The subject is I. The action is wake up early.
The tricky one we discussed earlier. I am a single person, but the language treats the speaker as the baseline. It is not the third-person outlier, so it takes the flat gear. I have to wake up early, which, let's be honest, nobody actually wants to do. But grammatically, it is perfectly sound.
You navigated those perfectly.
Yeah.
Now let me throw an edge case at you to really test the magnet theory.
Okay, I'm ready.
What if I want you to ask a question about that first scenario? The subject is she. The action is work hard, but you need to ask if it is an obligation.
Okay, let me give you, the listener, a second to figure it out first. Subject is she. Action is work hard, but it's a question. So what's the first word?
Think about the magnet.
Right. Think about the magnet. Okay, let me run it. Asking a question means I need to introduce the auxiliary gear at the front. The subject is she, so the gear must carry the third-person weight. Does. So the sentence starts with, does she? Now, the magnet is active. It has stolen the S, which means the obligation phrase reverts to the baseline. Does she have to work hard?
Flawless logic. You see how much easier it is to construct the sentence when you understand why the words are shifting rather than just trying to memorize a list of phrases.
Absolutely. If you are listening to this and you were able to follow that gear shift, if you predicted, does she have to, before I got there, you have successfully internalized the core mechanics of modern English obligation. You've mapped the engine.
You really have.
Let's summarize the mechanical journey we've just been on. We started with the basic positive formula, that fundamental split between the baseline, I have to, and the outlier, she has to.
The great pronoun split.
Right. Then we navigated the complex plot twist of the negative rules, where introducing the greedy magnet word does steals the grammatical weight, forcing us to say she does not have to instead of has to.
That was the big mind bender.
It really was. And finally, we use that exact same magnet logic to build inversions for questions like, does he have to study?
If we step back and connect this to the bigger picture of communication, mastering these small, seemingly invisible grammatical hinges is the true key to achieving fluency.
It really is.
When you aren't second-guessing whether to use has or have, when you aren't mentally stumbling over where the S goes, you drastically free up your own cognitive load.
You stop fighting the machinery.
Exactly. You avoid information overload in your own brain, allowing you to focus entirely on what you are trying to communicate rather than how you're trying to mechanically assemble it.
That makes total sense.
The scaffolding becomes invisible again, and you get to just live your routine. You just pour the coffee.
That is a brilliant way to frame the value of grammar. It's not about being pedantic, it's about reducing friction in your own mind. But before we let you go, there is a slightly deeper, more philosophical question that emerges when you look at these grammar notes as a whole. Something for you to mull over long after this deep dive is finished.
Oh, what's the question?
Look closely at the scope of the examples we analyzed today. We use the exact same rigid, mathematically strict grammatical structure of absolute necessity for totally mundane, trivial chores, like I have to charge my phone or she has to cook dinner, as we do for major life-altering ambitions, like we have to learn English.
That is a very valid point. The grammar doesn't distinguish between a minor daily task and a massive life-changing goal. The engine operates the exact same way for both.
Exactly. So my question for you is this. Does placing all of our daily actions under the exact same grammatical umbrella of obligation secretly shape the way we psychologically view our own lives?
Oh, wow.
By using the same invisible scaffolding, the same strict, heavy mechanical gear for everything we do, are we inadvertently turning our genuine passions and goals into mere chores, simply by the grammar we use to describe them in our own heads?
That is heavy.
It's something to think about tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off and that invisible, thoughtless routine begins all over again.
That is a deeply fascinating question to leave them with. The language we use undoubtedly shapes the reality we experience.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the invisible structures around you.